So it was a little hard to see, but hopefully you caught what was going on there. The little boy went out and he was playing soccer on his own, and there was no partner to play with him. He didn't have the ability to have a teammate, so he went home and set up dinner for his mom and his dad, and 9 months later he had a teammate. So, the way we refer to it is to consummate the goal, it must be planned for. And the it could be whatever you like. To consummate the goal, it must be planned for. So this sheet right here that we've handed out to you is a way that we've done that. We put together a database, and the database basically says, hey, Agent John, you said you want to go out and write $150,000 this year. Well, guess what? That's not going to just happen. You can't just decide today you're going to go out and write that. You've got to plan that out on a weekly basis. And you're about to see the plan of action. This plan of action entails, well, first and foremost, I need to know what your outcome is. You want to write $20,000? This agent right here. I'd like to have $20,000 saved in my investment account. We found that out from the first sheet, right? We found out that he wanted to buy himself a hoopty. He wanted to qualify for President's Level 2, and he wanted 2 weeks off. That's how he was going to do it. At the end of the day, he was going to write $200,000 worth of personal production. In order to do that, at this week of the year, with 4 weeks left, he needed $192,000. Our database was able to subtract, okay, $200,000 divided by 50 weeks is $4,000 a week. You got 4 weeks left. Therefore, you got $8,000 left that you should be writing in order to hit that goal. And it breaks it all down. Okay? And this is what I mean by really planning it out. Giving every single number to this agent so that that agent can make it happen. Our business is easy, folks. It's very, very easy. However, it's a numbers game. And if we don't play the numbers properly, it never comes together. So I can go to an agent right away and say, hey, what's going on? We've got 16 weeks left. And you're not even 75% of the way to where you're supposed to be. What's going on? Where you at? What's going on? And he could say to me, or she could say to me, well, I took off more weeks than I was supposed to. Yeah, I see that. You got 7 weeks off so far. You said you're only going to take off 2. How are you going to make a change? And I'm able to look at the numbers instead of talking about how let's get there. I'm able to put the destination in front of them on a regular basis. Our agents receive this every single week. You'll see on here that it's got a goal. If you want to go out there this week, do it in 1 week. That's your goal to close the gap. You'll see that this is what your average has been. So you're nowhere near what you need to do based on what the plans are. You'll know how many apps you've written on an average basis per week, what your premium per sale is, what your closing rate is, what your placement rate is, what your goal is for your placement rate. That's important to put in front of them and then see how it's not there. What their income is and how it breaks down, how much they've actually made for the year. This sheet's been was very difficult to create. I'll put that right in front of you. It took a lot of time learning Microsoft Access Database so that we can create it and then putting it together. But the value we received from making it happen has been invaluable, right? Because we actually know these numbers now and we're not guessing at them. Any questions on that? Okay. So the next thing that, the next nugget that I wanted to talk about, I need a few volunteers. And I think I'd like to kind of show you what I mean by this instead of just talking about it. So I need maybe 4 or 5 volunteers to come on up. Come on up, sir. I appreciate this. I really do, because you kind of stepped right back into it again for me. So I appreciate it. I wasn't going to force you. So, all right. Here we go. Yeah, he said, I think I remember this. This isn't good. All right, so, guys, what I'm going to ask you to do right now is, you're standing before us. We've got some amazing gentlemen who are going to stand up. They're going to place their hands in the air for us, okay? If everybody could place their hands in the air. I'm just going to put this down for a second, right? And what I'd like you to do, guys, is if you could just take your hands and just kind of close them for me, just like that. No, a little higher, Scott. Come on. There, jeez. And then if you wouldn't mind, if you would just open your hands again. Okay? Yeah, one more time. Close. And then open, right? Now the next step, what I like you to do is if you could just kind of take your hands out, put your elbows out like this, elbows like this, and then if you would just put that down. And then put it up again. See, I asked them to do, they did. Did everybody see how that happened? I ask, they do. And it's a valuable lesson. If you would do that again, please put your hands up and then close them. And then open your hands again and then close them. And if you don't mind, just do it one more time. And if you would. That's beautiful. You guys are awesome. Keep going. All right. See, thank you guys. Thank you. So you know, what we're trying to do here was I asked, they did. I said, hey, just do this. Do you think that they would have stepped up there if I asked everybody to come up and say, hey, would you mind please coming up in front of us to do the chicken dance and make a fool out of yourself? Do you think that they would have run up with so easily? No. However, I asked them, just do this. Just do this. That's all I need you to do. And I think in management, it's that simple. You know, don't let them run around with like chickens with their heads cut off. Don't sit there and say, hey, go out there and go make it happen. No, give them direction. Do this. Do this. And equate that to whatever that means for you. For me, it means I better not put an agent in the field unless first and foremost, I do observation with them. If I'm going to have somebody come leave their job to come work with us, then they better know what it's like in the field first. So they're going to sit in the field with an agent one full day. That's what this means. That's the first step. You want to work with me? You're going to make a decision after that. You're going to sit down with me. We're going to figure out whether or not we're the right decision, right best bet. Because I don't want you coming on board with me unless you know exactly what you're getting into. You're going to know the fields, the marketplace we work with. You're going to know the type of person you're going to be sitting with. You're going to know that cockroach is going to be biting at your leg. You're going to know everything about my business before you come in. The next step, I'm going to bring you into a training school. And you're going to sit with me for 3 days, minimum, sometimes 6. You're going to be in that training school. It doesn't matter whether you've got a bunch of opportunities going on. I don't care how many other products you might work. That's good. Go work those products then. But you're going to take the time with me to find out what our business is about. Why? Because I need to teach you how to do this. Okay? And as I continue to spend that time with them, I'm able to find out a little more about them. Find out a little bit more about their shortcomings, find out what motivates them, what motivates their family and how they keep going, right? I can also lean back on something because our training school is the same every single time. When I have sales meetings, I don't have to sit there and come up with ideas. I could just go back to, we all talked about in training doing this, and you're not doing that. Why not? Let's move forward, right? If we don't have a foundation that's repetitive, that's a foundation that we can always lean on, we're not going to be able to go back to that foundation every single time we need to. So for us, we make sure that we have a training school. We run that training school regularly, and it goes, and every agent is expected to be there. They're also expected to make sure that they're there on Mondays or calling in on Mondays. If they're not, then we don't know what they're doing. We give them the plan to make sure that they do exactly the path that's going to make them successful. We don't show it to them in its fullness until they're out there doing it. But we give them little steps along the way. So I just want to recap. Number 1, you must find out what makes them go, but hold the mayo. Number 2, to consummate the goal, it must be planned for. You can't expect them to just get out there and make it happen. And number 3, don't let them run around with like chickens with their heads cut off. And so it's at this point that I'd like to kind of share with you one other video that's helped us understand it more and what motivation means. I saw that video the first time, and I thought about a specific agent that we have with us who, he really struggled in the beginning. He gave everything and was not becoming successful. And he went out and he just gave up. His name was John. He gave up. He just said, you know what, I can't do it anymore. I put in 70 hours to this. For the last 6 weeks, I've made about $10,000 worth of production, and it's not working for me. This isn't for me. So I sat him down and I said, hey man, like I know what you're going through, but let me ask you a question. Why did you want to do this in the first place? He said, well, I came in here, I went to your awards banquet, and it was so exciting. I want to stand up on that group. I want to stand up in front of everybody and be acknowledged for a job well done. And right now I'm looking like a fool. And I got to go. I said, well, what did we talk about yesterday? He said, we talked about the numbers. Right, yeah, well, I was trying to get somewhere else. He said, no, we talked about the numbers. I said, well, we talked about the day before. He said, we talked about the numbers. I said, no, we did. We talked. He said, and the day before we talked about the numbers. And last week we talked about the numbers. And the week before we talked about the numbers. And quite frankly, I don't know if you care about me enough. You only care about the numbers. And I thought, wow. Maybe I messed up somewhere along the way. I didn't intentionally do it, but he's right. I fell into a path of management where all of a sudden I was texting, hey, how'd it go today? Where are you at? You didn't submit your numbers yet. I fell into a path of when I talked to him on the phone, hey man, so how'd it go today? Where were your numbers at? I kept doing this, not intentionally, because I'd give him responses. When he'd start talking about, yeah, I screwed up today in this presentation, or I did this presentation bad, I realized that all I sounded like was that I cared about numbers. My questions messed him up. I didn't focus on what I talked about before. I didn't focus on getting the gas in the tank. Instead, I started focusing on what's your numbers like. And I promise you, the easiest way to get there as a manager, I've learned, is to start texting my agents. If I text them, then guess what I get? The numbers, and that's it. If I start a path where they can just come to me only about the numbers, I fail. And I fail miserably. But when I get on the phone with a person and I force myself to say, hey, how's your family? And get a question that's outside of the numbers, that's focused on what their why is, everything changes. I start becoming a human instead of somebody that just wants numbers, a dictator in many ways. So I encourage you. I realize that texting is valuable, but don't let your means of communication with your manager, with your agent, be texting. In fact, I'd like to share with you this little sheet that we've given out now. And this sheet helps us to see more than just the numbers. It talks about what our goal is for the week. It gives them a breakdown of what our 10 commandments of sales is. It gives us where their production is going and the like, and it gives them a little mileage minder on, for their tax purposes, for a 1099 position, they're able to keep track of their mileage for the day, right? It gives them a little opportunity to put in their expenses and how many calls they made and how much commission they can make. And that's all well and good. The other side gives you a little schedule, and our agents use this every single Monday as they're making calls. They plan out their schedule. They book their appointments using this schedule. But this bottom part is where I have, as a manager, really been focusing all of my time. And I've been encouraging my management team to only ask questions that were related to this one. And that's called the weekly lead summary. I call it a lead journal. And what I've been encouraging our agents to do is to write down the lead number, the last name, and why the person sent back the card. Let me say it again. The lead number, the person's last name, and why the person sent back the card. If there is anything of value that I might be able to share in my struggle with becoming a better manager and a better leader, it's that I've learned that the only thing that matters in our business is why the person sent back the card. If I'm on the sales side, all I care about is finding out why that person sent back that card. Unfortunately, as I've grown as a manager, I've forgotten that when I'm talking to my agents. And so this has been a really great tool for me to remind myself. From now on, my question to my agent is no longer how to go today. It's why did she send back the card? Hey, you told me you were going to have a 2:15 appointment with Mrs. Smith. Why'd she send back the card? Hey, at 4:15 you said you had an appointment. Why did that person send back the card? At 6:15 that person, you said you had an appointment. Why did they send back the card? In a perfect scenario, from the get-go, when I'm doing this with somebody and I'm teaching them how to open and close and do this, I'll get them to set up to call me after every single appointment. Those are the most successful scenarios. Every single appointment, the person calls me. No texting. Forget that. Your first 12 weeks, you are not allowed to text me. I want to talk to you. I'm a human, and I want to talk to another human. And from there, when I talk to them, I ask them, why did they send back the card? Folks, that is the answer to all of our challenges in final expense. We are dealing with leads from people who have said, I have an interest in your program. Every one of our leads has final expense life insurance on it. Don't tell me that anybody put that lead back in the mail. They put their name, their date of birth. They went to the post office. They sent it back to us without a reason. And I know Derek said earlier that he was going to get at odds with the crowd because he was going to say something that might be contrary to what others believe. But I think it's a load of bull when somebody tells me that the reason they sent back the card is because they were looking for more coverage. To me, that's a lie. That's not the reason why somebody sent back the card. It might be a path to understand why they sent back the card. A person might say to me, oh, I don't have any coverage at all. Yeah, well, that's a path to understanding why they sent back the card. But it is not the reason why they sent back the card. And as a manager, I have become so focused on making sure I get the real answer from every single client. And whether that be from the client or through the agent, I've got to get that answer. And the only way I know that answer is by answering these two questions. The first question is, Mrs. Jones, God forbid, if you died yesterday and you were looking down from heaven and you're looking down at your family, who would be responsible? Who would you want to be responsible for making decisions on your behalf? I want my agent to tell me the answer to every single lead for that. That's what I mean when I say lead remarks. I want them to write, Jane was the name of the beneficiary. Mrs. Jones, if you passed away yesterday, who would be responsible for making decisions on your behalf? Oh, it's Jane? Okay, great. And then everything in that person's presentation better be focused on Jane. So I want to know Jane's name, and I want it on that lead summary. The next part, the next question that I must get an answer from every single one of my agents every time I talk to them is the question of, have you ever had the unfortunate experience of placing a loved one in the ground? Because if I can answer those two questions, if Mrs. Jones, if you passed away yesterday, who would be responsible for making those decisions? And have you had the unfortunate experience of having to place a loved one in the ground? If I can get the answers to those two questions, guess what, folks? I can close them. They just told me exactly how to close them. And not only can I close them when I'm sitting in front of them, but I can teach an agent how to close them when they're talking to me on the phone afterwards. I can hold them accountable. But if they never knew the name of the beneficiary, if they never knew that 3 months ago that client had their husband pass away and it was a planned experience, they were dealing with it for 3 years, they had the most wonderful experience because they planned it out in advance, and finally when it did happen, it was a burden off of their shoulders. If I don't know that, then I'll never be able to know exactly why they sent back the card. And if they don't know why they sent back the card, I'll never be able to teach my agent how to make sure that they close that person. So I've made a commitment, and from my management perspective, to get that answer for everybody. And this is the way that we've done it. So this is called the lead journal. And I tell my agents that you got 40 leads this week. And with those 40 leads, I want those answers for every single lead. I want an answer for every one of these slots. You have 40 leads. I want the number. I want what their name is. And I want the answer to those two questions for every single one of those leads. Guess what happens when I say that to them? Maybe I'll take 30 leads instead. And that's a good thing. Why? Because they really understand that I'm holding them accountable to every one of those leads instead of just holding them accountable to a number anymore. And when I hold them accountable to the lead itself, then I hold them accountable to the presentation that I taught them. And when I hold them accountable to the presentation that I taught them, I'm able to sit down and get them good at what they do. I don't know about you, but that really resonates with me with what Derek was saying. You know, you got to do what you love. And until you're good at it, you're probably not going to love it. So the way that we get good at it is answering those two questions. When we know the answers to those two questions, everything else falls into place. And, you know, one of the things that I've thought about is that for the people that I deal with, I oftentimes, as a manager, I start losing sight of that. I start focusing on the numbers and lose sight of the fact that each person does have a dignity, a destiny, a dignity, and a defect. And when I couple those three things together, that they do have a dignity, that they are a person, that they are looking to seek out their family, that they do have a certain type of gas that will fill their car. When I focus on the fact that they don't mean harm, but they might not be trained properly, and that's on me, and that I've got to do everything possible in order to make sure that I can allow them to part ways. And finally, that they might have these defects, the same that I have. I'm able to manage the person from the total perspective, versus I'd like to do that. So that's the fourth. Don't horse around with the wrong questions. Ask the right questions, you'll get the right answers. And finally, my fifth golden nugget. Take it from a Jersey guy. There's always a way to close the gap or to bridge the gap. There's always a way to bridge the gap. And what do I mean? Well, a lot of our agents, over the last, say, 2 years, we've opened up our hopper, if you will. We used to take a specific agent and only a specific agent. If you wanted to work for Diversified, you had to fit the mold. You are going to be 100% focused on this business and nothing else. You are going to go out, you're going to do exactly what we tell you to do, you're going to report to us at every single minute of the day, you are going to answer to every single question, and all of that. And that's the path that we know is successful, so that's why we laid it out that way. Yet what we've been learning is there's got to be a way to bridge the gap. Because a lot of the agents that are out there, they might have come in and said, hey, you know what, Mr. Bowles, I'm in. I like your opportunity. I'd like to find out more. So they get it sent over to us, right? And now we start talking to them, we find out, wait, hold on, you do what? And what type of insurance do you sell? Oh, and you do that as well? And you do that as well? Oh, you do this as well? And you expect to not travel? And all of these different things, and they want to talk bad about every other agent. And we've got all these different situations when we talk to these people when we're recruiting, right? One of the things that I've been spending a lot of time doing lately is trying to bridge the gap. To say, hey, I know where you're at. Come take an opportunity to see what I do. Come out in the field with me, understand what I'm doing, understand how my process leads, and I'll show you success. You can make a decision after that. So I guess ultimately for me, bridging the gap means I'm not going to make a judgment on an agent the second I meet him. And that's difficult. That's really, really difficult. I like to think after 12 years in this business that I could look at an agent and say, you could be successful or not. And I'm wrong when I do it. And so I've got to find a way to bridge the gap, to give every single person the opportunity to be successful in our business. And that does mean that there's a book that we've been reading by Keith Rosen. It's called Coaching Salespeople into Sales Champions. And I've encouraged you to read it before, Coaching Salespeople into Sales Champions. It's an excellent book which focuses on not just getting the winners and letting them be winners in an organization, but instead taking somebody that might not be the perfect scenario and making them perfect. Bringing them from here and taking them to there. So I would encourage you, as we leave here today, spend the time to focus on that, to coach salespeople into sales champions. And the way that happens is through accountability. And the way that we've done that with our agents, and just in summary here, is to first know your outcome. I got to know what that person wants. I got to know why they must achieve it. I've got to take specific, massive action like these sheets lay out for them so that they understand exactly what I'm expecting of them. And then I'm going to tweak it until I get there. I'll bridge that gap until I fix it so that they experience the destination that they're looking for. Finally, I'd like to close with this, because I really believe it is, as a leadership summit, we're here to understand about what we do, what growing ourselves and being remembered, what we're remembered for. But ultimately,
hey, here in my backyard, people always asking me for
advertisement from YouTube, sorry. Here we go.
tour, so I thought I'd show a little bit of my house, but more importantly,
So this video is something that I've been watching at least once a week with my salespeople, and it helps us to focus on being held accountable for what really matters most.
I've often said that I wish
So at the end of the day, what I want to be remembered for is being able to make a positive impact on the lives of those around me. And I encourage you, as a management team, I think that that's what it really comes down to. That's what matters most, is that we make the commitment to not only focus, when we look at these sheets, we need to be thinking about how do we get these in the hands of every single one of our people, not immediately, what am I going to gain from it? And if we do that and we couple that with the fact that we've got to get an answer for every single one of these leads that are distributed as to why this person sent back this card, I promise you each and every one of us will be remembered for making a positive impact on each one of our agents. Thank you.